Hi everyone, and welcome to our live about harnessing the versatility of camellias. My name's Danae, I'm going to be your host today. I'm here with Chris, our expert horticulturalist. If you are new here, say hi in the comments. We'd love to have you here. And if you are returning, it's amazing to see you again. We have these lives on a pretty regular basis. We actually have a weekly live Q&A every Monday. So if you have any gardening questions, come down to our Monday live Q&As. So today we're going to talk specifically about camellias and all the many things you can do with them. If you do find you have any questions, please comment them and we are going to get to them at the end. So just comment them whenever you want and I promise we will get to them at the end. So Chris, take it away.
Okay, camellias are an all-time garden classic. Ever since I was a child helping my parents in the garden, camellias have always been, held a top place in lots of gardens, and these days in modern gardens they're starting to play a role as well. And it's because camellias are so versatile. Now, right here, while I'm doing this, I'm sipping some green tea. And did you know that green tea is actually, or all tea is made from camellias? All the common teas, apart from chamomile and things like that, but all your common teas are made from camellias. And you can actually grow, and I'll show you one later. You can actually grow a green tea camellia and grow your own tea. But there's much more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run you through the various things you can do with camellias, and why camellias are so good in so many applications in the garden. And so I'll be talking about the different types of camellias. I'll be talking about the different things that you can do with camellias. I'll be talking about when camellias flower and which ones you have for different times in the year. And then I'll be talking about their tolerances, like how hard you can prune them. And often I've been in old gardens and seen 80, 90-year-old camellias, no problem at all. I'm sure if Australia was an older place, we'd be looking at 200-year-old camellias. So camellias are very long-lived, easy to grow, hardy, versatile plant that really delivers the goods. And so that's what I'm going to be talking about today. And so if you tune in today and you listen in, at the end I can answer some questions for you. But what you can get out of this is you can get, you might live in an apartment, you might work out that camellias are something that you can grow on the balcony and really get some joy. You might have a shady spot and you need something tall and green there and you haven't known what to grow, and you might realise that camellias are just the go for that spot. Or your garden might be colourless at this time of year and you want to get some colour into your garden, or you need something tall in a pot that's really easy and easy to look after. So today's the day you can learn about camellias and how you can use camellias in your garden. And first of all, we'll talk about the different types of camellia. And I mentioned the green tea. So actually, this is a tea camellia. Now the interesting thing is that these are grown commercially in Australia. I've visited a tea plantation. I can't remember the name of it, but I visited a tea plantation, and it's in the Atherton Tablelands. Very fertile soil, high rainfall, and it's similar. And I've also visited tea plantations in Anhui province in China, and you've got lots of tea plantations in India, and this is the type of camellia that's used for your tea production. And what I find interesting about this is that it has a very delicate little flower that you can see here, pretty little flower, and these ones, we've had them in the nursery, they've been flowering for months, and you know that the flower actually smells like really fresh green tea. And if you grew one of these in the garden, you'd have to wait till summertime when the new shoots are coming. You only have to pick a few grams, dry it in the microwave, and you can have some green tea. And you know, there's nothing like green tea. I've had green tea just straight off the plant in China, and that green tea that's freshly picked and freshly dried is so much better than old stuff that you buy in packets. It's not that the old stuff's that terrible, but the fresh stuff is unbelievable. So, but the thing is that if you were to grow green tea, you'd find this is a lovely hedge, lovely pot plant, lovely specimen plant, enjoyable flowers, and then the green tea is really a bonus. So that's one of the varieties, is your green tea camellia. And perhaps actually this one, I picked this one here. This has got a few nice, really open flowers on it. That's it there.
So pretty, and you get tea from it. I mean, that sounds like a pretty good deal to me.
Yeah. And one of the things when you read the label, they suggest that you could grow it as a nice dense hedge. So imagine a hedge and you drink the trimmings. So that's a most unusual hedge, I think. So anyway, so probably the most popular camellia that we sell in the nursery is our Sasanqua camellia, and well, these are Sasanqua camellias over here. And probably the most popular of the Sasanqua camellias is this one here, which is called Setsugeki. Now Setsugeki has beautiful foliage. It's a great one for hedging. It's really good. A lot of people who are doing the green and white gardens really go for your white Sasanquas. But I'm a great lover of white with a hint of pink. And so that's your Setsugeki there. Beautiful white flowers, lovely foliage. And white with a hint of pink, I really go for this one here. This one here. This one here is Pure Silk. Now, one of the funny things is Pure Silk has a pink, unfortunately there's no buds coming in it, but this has a pink bud, and it has a lovely little hint of pink in the flower, just a beautiful little hint of pink in the flower, lovely plant. So Pure Silk, really beautiful. Now Pure Silk, a lot of people don't like, a lot of your Sasanquas have got big yellow centres in them. The great thing about Pure Silk, actually we'll just have another quick look and I'll explain it. The great thing is that the yellow centre is obscured. For people who don't like the yellow centre, the Pure Silk is one of the best Sasanquas. And then this one here is called Shell Pink. And Shell Pink is has massive flowering and very strong growth. You can grow, it grows very quickly, and it's a really good tough Sasanqua that'll get up big really quickly. Just tell me what's come through, so we'll let him through. So that's your Sasanqua camellias. Now Sasanqua camellias, Sasanqua camellias are variable in terms of how they are, but essentially a Sasanqua camellia has as many flowers. The flowers are smaller than most camellias, the leaves are finer, and Sasanqua camellias are very versatile in that they'll grow in full hot sun. In full hot sun they'll need plenty of water, plenty of fertilizer, and they'll grow in deep shade. I remember when I was young, my father had quite a large nursery, and he told me to go plant, I think it was 2,500-3,000 little young Sasanquas into a valley that he had, and the sun never shone in that valley, and the ground was all covered in moss, and there was never a drop of sun in that valley because it was surrounded by big gum trees, and the sun was always behind the gum trees. And I said to Dad, look, let's not do it, it'll never grow down there, it's too shady. And he said, just do it. And I went down there, planted them, and I remember years later, perhaps he was trying to prove a point, but he'd say, oh, Chris, he said, this year I got 80,000 Sasanquas out of that little valley down there. And 80,000 cuttings that was. And each year he cut 50, 60, 80, 90,000 cuttings from this little valley, and they grew beautifully for many years in that valley. So Sasanqua camellias, my dad proved me wrong, grow with absolutely no sun. So these days I get a lot of people coming in with 2-story houses, and they've got a spot where the sun never quite gets down. There'll be natural light there, but they've got 2-story houses, and they want to screen out the fence. They've got a big kitchen window, and they want something attractive to look at, and there's only a 1 or 2 metre space there. And Sasanqua camellias are absolutely fabulous because I can know with complete confidence that the person can grow them without any sun. They don't need that much root space. As long as you use really good soil, they don't need too much root space, and they'll grow up, and with a little bit of trimming, you can keep them sort of narrow, and you can get your flowers, on the wall, and get some beautiful colour in the autumn, and they don't need any sun. Yet you could put them out in a sunny spot as well. So if that same hedge was to go along and go into a sunny part, they'll be fine in that spot as well, as long as they're well watered. Their water requirement goes up a little bit once they get into hot sun. But basically, your Sasanqua, hot sun through the deepest shade, as long as it's natural light, they'll be fine. So you can grow them under verandas, under pergolas, and you can grow them in pots, and they make beautiful pot plants. And with the Sasanquas, you get a range of colours from white through to one of my favourites is called Hear You. And Hear You is, some people say it's a red, but it's a kind of a mauvey, purpley, pinky kind of a reddy colour. Looks, it sounds weird, but it's really nice. Big yellow centre, very, very strong grower. It's the strongest growing camellia that I know of. Very strong grower, great for a hedge, and really, really bright. So people who love a bright colour, which I'm kind of inclined towards bright colours, Hear You is wonderful. But you've got lots of lovely, subtle, soft colours and whites and pinks and whites and so a good colour range. Now, when I was young, the most popular camellias, the samples were quite rare when I was young, was your japonica, and this is probably my favourite japonica these days, and this is called, we put him up here, this is called Volunteer. Now, I suspect your japonica camellias seed quite freely in the garden, and you'll often get a seedling, and I'm sure that somebody let a seedling grow and got this most amazing flower. Look at this flower here, it's absolutely wonderful. Beautiful buds. Now your Volunteer is an exception to the rule with japonica. Basically with japonicas, generally you need to grow them out of the hot afternoon sun, or you'll get brown patches in the middle of the leaves in the heat of summer. And but your Volunteer is quite sun hardy. As long as it's got adequate moisture, it won't sunburn. It'll flourish in the sun, but it'll also flourish in deep shade. And it's a good strong grower, makes it thick, bushy, and your japonicas tend to have a wider leaf, and they tend to grow fatter and bushier and wider than your sasanquas, but they'll grow quite tall, they'll live for many, many years, and this is a very typical one here, and it's starting, your Volunteer seems to start flowering quite early, but what happens is that your sasanquas tend to go autumn into mid-winter, and then your japonicas tend to come late winter or very early spring into spring. So by planting sasanquas and japonicas, you can have camellia flowers for 5 or 6 months of the year. And what's interesting about this one here is that these flowers become darker and richer colours as you progress through the season. And right now they're early season and fairly pale. So that's your very exquisite Volunteer camellia.
Beautiful. And for anyone commenting questions, keep them coming. We are going to answer all the questions at the end of the live. So if you find that you have anything coming up for you that you want to know more about camellias, just comment it below, and we're going to dedicate time at the end to answer all of them.
Yeah, and here I'll just show you look at a couple of more really popular. Green and white is very in vogue at the moment. And probably the most popular white is Pope John Paul, and that's a big, full, classic white, like a beautiful sort of semi-formal double, really, really nice, and nice foliage, beautiful big white flowers, really nice. And then black tie, which is a more formal, slightly more formal one like that. And you can see large leaves, typical, and a fairly formal-looking double. So, but we could spend the rest of the day looking at different varieties of japonica camellia. Now, I haven't seen them around in the nursery trade for a few years, but when I was young, what was very, very popular was the reticulata camellia. I wonder if we have a photo of a reticulata camellia. Now, and your reticulatas are amazing. They were very hard to propagate. My dad worked for years to try and work out how to propagate them, and it was every year he'd try some different experiment to try and get his reticulata. And the problem was they didn't strike very well from cuttings, and that one, yeah, that's classic reticulata would be the middle row, photo number 4. That one there, very typical, very typical. So they used to graft them, and if anybody owned a reticulata camellia, it was a real prize. And you go around to somebody's house and say, "Oh, come look at my reticulata camellia," and the flowers would be not quite as big as a bread and butter plate, but really generous sort of saucer size, like a beautiful big saucer size flower with the most amazing curls, and almost like a peony rose, really amazing. But reticulatas, I haven't seen them on the market really for quite a few years, and I think it's because they're so hard to propagate. But they're a variety that I'll never forget. Really, really amazing. So that's there. Now you could spend the rest of the day talking about different camellia varieties. There's lots of species ones that are around with little tiny flowers, and some of them are beautifully fragrant. So there's lots of other varieties you can explore, and a good place to look at camellias. Probably one of the greatest camellia breeders was a chap called Carl van der Ven, and he's donated most of his different camellias to the Olinda Rhododendron Society. And so a great place, if you wanted to go and see rare and unusual camellias, I'd go up to the Rhododendron Society at Olinda and go through their gardens there, and you'll see some fabulous camellias. So really, really, that's where I'd go to see really rare and wonderful camellias. And some of the fragrant species, and some of the really, and you'd see your big reticulatas and things there. So, and unfortunately, because some of those older varieties are tending to be lost in the industry, and so you'd have to see them, you'd have to go there. And so that's your different varieties. Now the thing is, given all those different varieties and given the range of camellias, let's see what you can do with camellias. So First of all, camellias are very popular for hedges and borders, and I've seen some spectacular hedges up in Emerald. There's a hedge of white camellias that would be over 100 metres long and a couple of metres tall. Absolutely unbelievable. Would be madly in flower right at the moment. But here's a photo of a really nice camellia hedge. Really, really beautiful. Lovely dense green foliage, and just and they flower with the right variety of sasanqua. That one there actually looks like Hiryu, which is the one I was discussing before, the sort of bright pinky red, and that's a great one for a hedge because it's a very, very strong grower, thick and bushy. So hedges are a really good way. Then another thing you can do with them is grow them as a specimen plant, just as an individual specimen in the garden with. And perhaps you've got a traditional style garden with other interesting flowers and things around them, and they are shade lovers, so you might grow things like heliobores or other shade lovers around them. Or you can grow, if you choose the right variety of sasanqua or something like that, you can grow them out in a hot sunny spot and have other cottage plants that are sun lovers, daisies and things like that around them. So specimen would be another application for them. Then you can use them as a pot plant. And camellias really fabulous as a pot plant. You can trim them, shape them, and keep them for years and years and years in a pot. So really, as a long term, because they trim so well, they love pot life. They, as long as you fertilise and water them, you can keep them lush and green and beautiful year after year in a pot. Have them out in a balcony. Have them in a shady corner, have them under the veranda, really, really good in a pot. Then you can use them as a standard, like that's a ball on a stick kind of a standard. And the problem is with standards that most of the ones on the market don't flower. Like you've got your standard bays, your standard ficus, your standard lily pillies, and they're mostly just green all year. So a standard ball on a stick sasanqua or camellia can be really, really good. I think I might even have one handy here. This one here is one of my favourite. I'll put it down a bit. This is one of my favourite. I'll put it like that. This is one of my favourite camellias. This is called Yuletide, and it's a. I'm not sure what sort of species it is. I don't think it's a sasanqua. It's not a japonica. It's but it's a big single sort of mauvey red. Flowers for months and months and months. Beautiful, dense, dark green foliage, slow growing. Great one for a pot, great one for a standard, because it's never going to go berserk and outgrow its situation. So that's Yuletide, and that you could plant a row of these as standards in your garden. Or you can have them as a standard in a pot with some other flowers underneath. So really versatile and handy to have in the garden. Now another application for camellias, and this is a little bit hard to do, but you can get some trellis, and you'd probably use a sasanqua, and you can use them as an espalier, and that's your camellia espalier. And so in a tight situation, you can have them up flat against the wall, You can have them up flat against the wall, and for the whole year, lovely evergreen foliage, and then at the right flowering time, covered in beautiful flowers. Now, there's one new type of camellia on the market which is really handy for lots and lots of people, and handy for a couple of applications. This one here is called Avalanche. Now, it's hard to see, I'll get behind so you can see it well, but what you can see about this one here, I'll get it actually over here so you can see it, but this one here is actually a column. It's hard to see against the rest of it, but it's tall and it's quite dense and bushy, and it's tall and skinny. Now, so if you wanted to grow a tall skinny plant, and you can have it as an individual or have it as a hedge, but it's basically a column, and it takes me back actually. A camellia is a column. When I was 7, I went and got myself a gardening job, and I used to work every Saturday morning for an elderly lady, and anything that was a bit tricky, like climbing the ladder or lifting heavy things, I used to do that for her. And anyway, she had a it was really in a bliss, she had a mound of earth in one part of her garden, and on the mound of earth she planted a Sasanqua camellia, and the Sasanqua camellia, I thought it was terribly tall, but looking back it was probably only about 2.5 metres tall, and it was cut into a perfect cylinder shape with a flat top. And at any rate, it used to take hours and hours to trim it. She'd have me out there, and she'd have me up the ladder, and I'd snip with the shears, and each snip was directed. She'd say, a little bit, that way, backwards, forwards, and I had to snip this thing, but it was a beautiful thing. It was surrounded by little petticoat daffodils, and it was the most beautiful column, and you can grow camellias into a garden of bliss. Like you could take that slimline camellia there, and you could have a beautiful shaped column or obelisk in the garden that flowers, and so that was another application of camellias, was to grow it as a sort of a sculpture or a bliss. This was a kind of a nice evergreen feature in the garden.
Incredible.
Yeah. So now, you've got all these different applications for camellias. The next thing is what do you have to do with camellias? So if you've got, almost anybody can grow camellias successfully, and you'll see them in even quite hot areas like Shepparton and things like that. You probably need to talk to your nurseryman if you're in a bit of a difficult spot about what to do. But basically, what do camellias like? They like loose, well-drained soil, and they like that soil to be acidic. So where people haven't got quite the right soil, I always tell them to use fine composted pine bark. They used to sell bags of that in Bunnings, lovely fine pine bark, and that makes, and most potting mixes, or we even sell an acidic potting mix here for gardenias and azaleas and things like that, and that will work on them. So basically, if your soil's not quite right, you can dig a big hole, mix some suitable potting mix or suitable material in there so it's acidic and it's light and that, and you plant in there, and then they love lots and lots of fertilizer. And often people will come to me and say, look, I've had this camellia for years and it's looking a bit crook, it's not quite working. And generally what's happened is that the old camellia, people start taking it for granted, they don't give it enough water. What I tell people to do when their camellia is looking a bit sad and a bit yellow after it's been there for 10, 20, 30 years or something like that, is I tell them to mulch it with pine bark, because pine bark basically rots and drops acid down on it. So acid, if you put a nice thick layer, and particularly fine crushed pine bark will give off more acid than coarser pine bark. So if nice fine pine bark, mulch. Osmocote is really, really good. If you buy beautiful big camellias from a nursery, you'll notice that there'll be plenty of Osmocote or other slow release fertilizer. It looks like they put it in there, like you get a nice healthy camellia, looks like they've been throwing it in there by the tablespoonful. So plenty of Osmocote or things like that. And if it was really, really crook, it's Osmocote, and it's only available like at really specialty stores like Bunnings or something like that carry a big range of fertilizers. But Osmocote sells a fertilizer which is a liquid fertilizer for acid-loving plants, and basically your camellias and gardenias and stuff, this will almost bring them back from the dead. So So pine bark, fabulous. Osmocote, terrific. And Osmocote liquid fertilizer for acid-loving plants, absolutely fabulous for a sort of a crook camellia. So and then the next thing would be plenty of water. So if the camellia's been around for years, started to look crook, look at the water, look at the mulch, look at the fertilizer, and get it going. Planting them, and you're not sure the soil's quite right, dig in some appropriate fertilizer. Like maybe dig 50% of the right fertilizer. Dig out the soil, put in 50% of the right fertilizer, and plant them nice and high in the hole with plenty of beautiful stuff all around them. It's a little bit acidic. And then remember, camellias love plenty of water, so plenty of water in the summer, nice deep water gets right down through the roots. And then Osmocote or other sort of similar types, Osmocote's a brand, but it's a coated fertilizer that doesn't release too quickly. Osmocote or other sort of similar types of fertilizers, nice heavy doses and regular, and your camellias will boom away and look fantastic.
Incredible. Did we chat about how long camellias flower for? Because that's one of the things I love most about camellias.
Right, okay, so you start off with your Sasanqua camellias, and they started flowering here. The very first flowers, we were kind of first week in April, I reckon, and they're flowering really strongly now. And by looking at the buds on some of them, like we've got over behind me here, you've got these shell pinks, and they're just covered in buds. I reckon you've got another 6 or 8 weeks of flowers left with them. So they threw their first flower back in April, and you've got another 6 or 8 weeks ahead. So they'll almost get you through the winter.
Incredible, because we did have a question here from Bavia, sorry if I said your name wrong, just asking if camellias grow in winter.
They have green leaves, they flower, but you won't get much foliage growth. Like what I wanted to do today was I wanted to pick some green tea, and I went down to my green tea camellias, and there was not 1 ounce of new growth on them. So it would have been horrible old tea. I'll have to wait till summer before I start picking their green tea from them.
Okay, no worries. Another question from Bavia, which also we wanted to touch on, is what other plants can be mixed up with Camellia sansqua? And specifically here we're talking about a border.
Right, okay. So when plants that I often mix is I love to mix the Bob's pink and the Bob's red Loropetalum. I think that grows beautifully. And that's kind of, camellias are very dark leaf, and so I'll mix that with it. And then for a bit of brightness, I'll use a stripy white liriope or the variegated society garlic. So for a bit of brightness and darkness, I'll use the Loropetalum, and that's a lovely, just compact little round, fine sort of burgundy type foliage, and then a nice stripy white, which is your green and white or silver and white, or your variegated society garlic. And that'd be some of my favourites. Another favourite would be your kaleidoscope abelia. Kaleidoscope abelia, beautiful golden green foliage mixed together, really lovely.
Amazing. Yeah, that sounds like a gorgeous combination. We have a question here from Jane asking, do they need feeding?
Yes, they really need feeding, and often I'll get people that come in and say, we've had it for years, but it's looking a bit miserable now. It's always lack of food, lack of water.
Okay.
And regular doses of Osmocote, you can't go wrong.
Perfect. And a question here from Riddhi asking, best time to prune them and how often to add fertilizer?
Right. Best time to prune is immediately the flowering is finished. And the reason being is that with a full growing season, you'll get plenty of flowering on the new wood. But if you were to prune them sort of halfway through the season, between flowering, you basically are really inhibiting next year's flowers.
Okay. If anyone has any other questions, please comment them below. We are going to be wrapping up our live soon. So is there any last words that you want to say about camellias, Chris?
I'm hoping I've really covered the full gambit of what you can do with them, because they really are versatile, and they're something that you need a hedge, you need a screen, you need a pot plant, you've got shade. It's something that should be on people's list of considerations. Like, I think too often people just come and say, need a hedge, want some lily pillies, and particularly lily pillies. Most lily pillies hate the shade. and so they get kind of red spider and various problems in the shady corner, and it's really good to put camellias on your shopping list.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you have beauty, you have practicality, you have versatility. Camellias are just great plants. So thank you everyone for coming to our live. We do these on a very regular basis. Every week we have some kind of lecture. We cover a lot of different topics. For example, we've covered how to add colour to your winter garden. We've done spotlights on other plants like loropetalums. If you want to hear more about that, go check out our articles on the website where we do a transcript of this and cover everything. And then we also have the live Q&A Mondays with Chris, which is completely focused on answering your questions and any problems that you're having in the garden. So if you are finding that you're just having troubles, you don't know what to do, maybe there's a plant that isn't quite going the way you want it to, be sure to join that live Q&A every Monday. We're just going to finish up with this last question from Tan, asking how long do I need to wait from bud to flower?
The buds, really it's months. Like you see the buds on the camellias as small buds in late summer. You'll see them starting to forming in February, and you're not going to see anything much till April. And then with your japonicas, you'll be seeing some of our japonicas are flowering now, but you're seeing mostly buds, and you're not going to see all of those buds flower until perhaps end of September, beginning of October.
Okay, awesome. So yeah, thank you everyone for coming. Like, you are our community of gardeners. It's really important for us that we want to just have everyone have the most beautiful gardens that they possibly can. So please share the word to your friends, your family, your loved ones, for them to come join our lives. We do promote it on our social media. So go follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're on a lot of different platforms. And yeah, hope the rest of your day is wonderful.
Thank you.